Welcome to Operational Harmony, Balancing Business and Mental Well-Being, a podcast with honest discussions about professional life and mental well-being in a natural conversational way. Your host is Nikki, founder of Nikki's Office, where she supports entrepreneurs through operations, systems, and strategy. And now, let's hear from our guest.
Hi, my name is Stephen Nawotniak. I'm an occupational therapist, certified peer specialist. I live with bipolar disorder, and I also am a certified psychiatric rehabilitation practitioner, which I hate the name. It sounds real clunky and clinical, but really it's all about partnering with someone instead of treating them and working with someone to support them in developing a goal and then working on those skills and supports to achieve those goals. So it's pretty cool, and what I really like about this all is it allows me to use my personal experiences with bipolar and my professional experiences as an occupational therapist and healthcare practitioner to really try to help demystify and destigmatize mental illness to make it a little bit more relatable and understandable.
I would have enjoyed that when I first stepped into the pathway of I can't just live, I need help with this mental health thing, because everything was terrifying.
Yes, I was hospitalized with severe depression and then diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And when I first got out, it was scary. I wasn't able to manage life when I went in, and before I went in, I should say, which is why I had to go in. And then they gave me some meds basically, and then it was okay, go out there and figure out how to relive. And it was about medication, it was about talk therapy, but I really didn't see people that were living a quality of life that I wanted. I saw a lot of people struggling, but I was 27 when I was diagnosed, and I wanted to live. I wanted to be able to be successful. I wanted to be able to find value in life as opposed to just struggling and coping with the symptoms. And so that was a bit of a journey about getting there. And yeah, so it's been an interesting one, that's for sure.
How did you get diagnosed?
Sure. So I went into the hospital after a really severe. Well, let me back up 1 second, and I just kind of want to lay the foundation a little bit. In May of 2000, I was working on a master's degree. I did a self-designed master's degree through Buffalo State University. And in this self-designed degree, I hiked, biked, sailed, and canoed from Buffalo, New York down to Key West, Florida. It took me 8 months, and I canoed across New York State on the Erie Canal, sailed the Hudson River down to New York City, backpacked the Appalachian Trail to Roanoke, Virginia, and then biked to Key West, Florida. It was an amazing adventure. And I really felt like I could do whatever I put my mind to and have a great adventure in life. And what I wanted to do was bring these experiences into the classroom as I was studying to be a earth science teacher. I say that because 2 years later, in August of 2002, I hit the worst depressive episode that I ever had. I could not pull myself out of it, and I ended up going into the hospital for depression. And I was also fortunate that they diagnosed me with bipolar, because if they didn't, then they would just give me antidepressants that could push me up into a mania. But for whatever reason, they were able to say, it's a bipolar thing. So that's how I got into the hospital and how I was diagnosed with it. And I have found my journey with bipolar has been a journey of 4 perspectives. The first perspective was all about coping with symptoms of an illness. So I got out of the hospital. It was about medication management. It was about talk therapy. I was feeling crappy because the meds don't kick in right away. It took me a couple months to kind of get out of the depressive episode. And balancing that whole thing about benefits and side effects, and what side effects am I willing to tolerate in order to have the benefits, and then all that kind of stuff. And that was a journey by itself, but it was still about how I was feeling, and I was trying to feel better, and because that darkness of depression gets pretty rough. So it was all about focusing on how I was feeling. And then after a few years, I was kind of tolerating it. I was doing stuff like a mood journal and all those, and gratitude journals. And the other thing about talk therapy was that whole sense of dealing with that negative self-talk, and how I can be pretty aggressive against myself. So understanding those kinds of things. After a few years, I ended up going joining a vocational program called VESID. It's Access VR now in New York State. But really, it's a program that helps people with disabilities either go back to school or find a job so that people can do things. And they introduced me to occupational therapy. And that was the first major perspective shift, because inside of learning, occupational therapy is all about being successful in those things that are meaningful to you. And so my shift went from from coping with symptoms of an illness to managing the needs of a condition. It focused from how I was feeling and trying to feel better to what I was doing and how I was living. And that started to open up some doors for me. I got my license and was working in the field for a bit, and then started to feel this tug to try to help demystify and destigmatize mental illness a little bit, because here I am, I'm a healthcare provider and I have a bipolar condition. And so I just felt like I had this perspective that I wanted to help share to make things a little bit better for people. That introduced me to the peer movement, and that whole movement of people with diagnoses willing to share that they have diagnoses, and then being with other people that have parallel experiences. I mean, everybody has their own journey. And just because you have the same diagnosis doesn't mean that it shows up the same, that you have the same experience, that you have the same journey. It doesn't mean that, but there's parallel things. I mean, people who have had the darkness can understand the darkness and can sit with you when you're in the darkness. And so it helped me shift from being alone in the journey to being the journey myself, but having people that I could travel that with. And that was an interesting thing I touched base with, because that introduced me to WRAP, which is the Wellness Recovery Action Plan. And it was an approach developed by people with mental health needs to be able to live a life, not just stay out of the hospital or cope with symptoms, but to live a life. And in that program, when I was taking it, I set down the diagnosis, and it was about just getting to know me. What are my strengths? What are my challenges? What are my triggers? What are those external things that could set me off? What are those internal things that when I feel that lets me know that things are going rough? What is it like to have a rough day? What is it like to have a good day? And when I have rough things, what's a plan to address them? And it really changed it to the third perspective, which is really personal growth and development. It was about me getting to know me. What's it like? What's my journey like? How does my bipolar show up? It was no longer about illness management. It was about wisdom development. And then in doing that, it really, as I was going, I started sharing my story and things. And that introduced me to the fourth and final perspective, which is really being able to help find purpose in pain. Because coping with rough experiences is, I find, challenging. But if I can find value in the challenge, if I can take the struggle that I've been through and have it mean something because I can support another or benefit another, or somehow find some purpose in that challenging experience that I've been through, that shifts the dynamic. So my four perspectives were coping with symptoms of an illness when I was first diagnosed and discharged from the hospital, managing the needs of a condition with what I was doing when I got involved with occupational therapy, personal growth and development when I got involved with the peer movement, and then finally being able to sit inside of purpose with pain. That's been my journey, and I have found that to be very different than just sitting talking about my symptoms.
I have had, I wouldn't say similar, because I don't think I could stage it out the same way you did, but in 2010 my world fell apart, and because of that I had to learn how to breathe again, and I ended up in a 3-day stay because I didn't want to be stupid. I call it the stupid because that is what I need to call it in order to not go anywhere near it. So somebody else might not call it that, but that is what I have to call it. And guess what? YouTube doesn't care if I call it the stupid.
Yep. I get it.
Or it might care if I called it the real thing. But it was terrifying getting dropped off the first time. I didn't know. I'd never even gone to therapists before. And now I was in this weird place where crazy people go.
Yep.
Right? And I didn't think I was crazy. So what was I doing here? And it was very upsetting.
Yep.
But it took me a while. It took me years to get to the point where I wasn't in the fog of it. Right? I could breathe again. It took a long time because I was in situations that were just awful for me. So it took me a lot longer to deal with things than it probably should have. But in 2017, I met my friend that I live with now, and she's a calmness sanctuary. I don't know how to state it any clearer. She is the type of person who is calm when I'm ready to freak out. And by the time she's ready to freak out, I'm in that, oh, this is one of those situations. I've dealt with these before. I know exactly what to do. You're okay. You know, it works. And it gives me a place where I can breathe. Like I said before we started recording, I have a whole bunch of letters after my name. And all of them have to do with trauma and living with it from the time I can remember until I met her anyway. Everything before that, relationships, friendships, were toxic. I was toxic because I didn't know what normal was because of what was normal in my household at the time for me. It was different for some of my siblings, but for me, the normal wasn't a good thing.
Yeah.
And it took me being around my friend for a while before I was like, yeah, that's probably not something I should do. Or maybe that's not something I should do. Okay, we're going to have to rethink some things. And so I got into let's set some goals, do some things, get things done type of space. And recently, I'd say the last 6 months to a year, while I do make reference to the fact that I have a lot of alphabet after my name, I don't generally think about them. I don't walk around going, oh, I'm bipolar today, or, oh, the PTSD is bad right now. I don't go around doing that because, first of all, I have way too many excuses I could give myself, right? There's way too many alphabets after my name because I guess I have a lot of problems from all that trauma. And so I have gotten to the point where, I'll make jokes because once you've hit the darkness, once you've seen the darkest parts of yourself, there's a humor. That's why I get along with military people, besides the fact that I'm a military brat. You know, once you've seen death, there's things that you can't unsee. There's things you can't unfeel. And that's different for everybody. Like how dark you go depends on you. And I went pretty dark and for a lot of years because of my life and things that were happening. I don't recommend people go as dark as I did. Not exactly the best idea. Probably should get help before it gets that bad. And the fact that you're sitting here after such a short time, while I'm not trying to say it wasn't hard work, because it definitely was, it always is to get that diagnosis and to start working for it, I commend you because it took me a crap ton longer to get behind myself and go, you know what? I have to be an adult about this. Which is one of the reasons why I did this podcast, is because I don't believe if you have a mental illness, you should stay where you are. I
100% agree.
Do not like the fact that it took me so long to come out of the darkness, even with medications, even with all of the stuff I have had since 2010. But if there's that old saying, if you keep doing the same things over and over again, expecting different results, it's a definition of insanity. Mm-hmm. And so if you're going to keep staying in the same place you've always been in, you're not going to be able to see the light from the dark, right?
100%.
That light, if you're not doing anything, that light you see is the train that's going to hit you with the next traumatic event, the next thing that's going to happen. It's not the light at the end of the tunnel, it's the train coming through that tunnel, and you're in the way. And so life's just going to keep knocking you down until you decide one day, oh, you know what? I should probably do something about this. And even if you had already decided, hey, I'm going to do something, and now you're on meds, but you're still living in the same situation, you're still doing the same things, then you haven't really decided to change yet. And that decision to change is how you come out of it. It's how you start getting better.
100% agree. And I would say three things I have found to be real beneficial with this is number one is understanding the purpose of meds. The purpose of meds is not to make all the yucky stuff go away and fix you. The purpose of meds is to soften the intensity of the experiences so they can be more manageable. And as we're doing that, one piece is softening the intensity of the symptom. The second piece is actually becoming more comfortable with some discomfort. You develop some distress tolerance, if you will. So that's one piece. The second piece I have found is that there's how we feel, and then there's what we make it mean. Feeling uncomfortable is feeling uncomfortable. Saying it's suffering is saying it's suffering. Don't get me wrong, it can be really freaking uncomfortable. And that's absolutely true. But when I get into the story about the discomfort and make that discomfort horrible, and it adds to the problem. So being able to give that little bit of separation between those two, recognizing this is how I feel and this is what I'm making it mean, is one of those kind of like crack the door a little bit and get a little bit of room. The third thing is that I have found is dealing with that negative self-talk and internal dialogue that I have with myself. And I have found the most powerful, two things are the most powerful tools that I have found with that. Number one, my thoughts are opinions, not facts. So instead of it being I am a loser, it's like one opinion is that I'm a loser. Okay, what else is out there, or what else am I grateful for? So that brings me to the second piece, and that is the word and. I feel crappy, and I'm grateful that I'm in my house and not hospitalized. I am grateful that there's sun and I can hear the birds. I am grateful that I'm pretty good at poetry or some sort of strength that I have. And you start stacking on those additional opinions, and now all of a sudden this one thing softens. So those three things I have found to help soften the intensity of the experience, which makes it a little bit more manageable and less overbearing and less overwhelming.
One of the things that I used to do with a friend is anytime she would say anything bad about herself, she had to compliment herself. And then she would do the same thing to me. If I said, because sometimes you don't hear it. So having a friend go, hey, you have to compliment yourself now. You just talk down on yourself. Or you don't realize that you're saying, the way you say sometimes that somebody else is smart makes it sound like you're telling yourself you're stupid. And so we would make each other compliment each other. And so it got me to the, not then, right? Because then I was still in the midst of the darkness and I wasn't going to see anything. But once I started coming out of the darkness, I was like, you know what? That actually helped me so much, because now that I can see, now that I can look back, hindsight's 20/20, right? Yeah. So now that I can look back, some of the times that I was the calmest is when I had to think of something good about myself. My negative self-talk can get pretty dark. Again, once you've seen the darkest, your brain is like, haha, I know what this is. Except it doesn't. It doesn't know. It's just basing it off of the circumstances that it's known before. Yep. And so in order to come out of that, for a while there, I in my own head, I never did it out loud because I thought it sounded stupid. So it's like, yeah, no, I just said something bad. So now I have to compliment myself. People around me would look at me like I was nuts, you know, so let's not do that. So in my own head, I would fix it, and that helped. Some days are harder than others. Some days you forget that you're supposed to not hate yourself because it's a hard day. Yep. But other days it's so easy to just go, you know what? Today has been calm. Wow. How'd I do that? Like,
Yep. Yeah.
really, my life doesn't usually go to the calmness side of things. So how did I do that? I did good today. Yay. And then not let yourself destroy it in the next breath by saying, yeah, because you could have screwed it up or something along those lines. But learning that, complimenting myself once I realized I was saying something bad about myself, it helped. It brought how dark my brain would go to insult me back a bit. So like, it still insults me. Do not get twisted. It still decides some days that I'm a reject and it needs to say different things about me that are stupid if said out loud. But I now have tools at my dispense where I can say, no, that's not the real situation. Let's think of what's really happening and go from there. Because just because you're in a situation where your anxiety's going through the roof doesn't mean that all of a sudden you're the most stupidest whatever on the planet. It just means that you're in a situation that is uncomfortable for you.
Yes.
Guess what? That is perfectly okay.
100%.
It is perfectly okay to be uncomfortable. Now, if you're me, you have to watch it a little bit because I get mouthy when I'm agitated. Who'd have thought? So I have to be careful and make sure that the person I'm being mouthy to understands that is just me trying to process the situation I'm in, and it is not them or like me. It's my mouth runs and I have to catch up to it some days.
Yeah. And two things I'll throw out there with that is, number one, the darkness. I have found two big lies associated with the darkness. One, I'm all alone. And two, it will always be this way.
Those and three, I'm not worth it.
Excellent. I'm going to add that. 3, I'm not worth it. I love that. Those are the biggest lies that I find that it talks about. And the second thing that I wanted to throw out there is just inside of that dialogue, just recognizing that there's more available and giving yourself permission for growth. Because like, our hearts beat blood. Our minds think. Our minds they're going to have thoughts. If you ever tried stop thinking, maybe it lasts for 10 seconds at most, 5 seconds, and then all of a sudden there's another thought. Mm-hmm. And actually what I have found is negative self-talk is pretty normal. Now, the intensity of that negative self-talk can have stronger times and softer times. But many people have some degree of negative self-talk. It's actually more normal than abnormal. Mm-hmm. So if we feel like we're the only ones having this kind of thing, it's most people have some kind of negative self-talk, negative self-dialogue going on.
Louder if you put the alphabet soup after your name.
Yeah. But yes, when it's louder, it can be pretty rough. But I guess what I'm just saying is that allowing it to be an opinion rather than fact, and allowing yourself to realize the brain just thinks. Don't think of a blue car. Whatever you do, not think of a blue car. You can think of anything else but a blue car. What are you thinking about?
A blue elephant. It's still blue. My brain is sarcastic.
I love it. But that's the thing, right? The more that we're trying not to think of something, the more we think about it. Mm-hmm. So it's just this realization that this is just the way the brain works.
Mm-hmm. And actually that comment starts something, because it's, if we have nothing to think about, if we try to stop the thinking, it's going to get negative and it's going to get loud quick. At least it does for me. You're right. Yeah. The moment I'm like, okay, I don't have anything to do. I don't have anything to think about. Oh, crap. Here we go. You know what I mean? Because then, like, everything gets louder. It's more intense. And now it's harder to try to get into the next thing.
Yep.
But also, I have found, this is my opinion, I'm not a healthcare professional. I am somebody who deals with mental health. I have found that there are 2 different types of depression. Okay? There's 2 sides of it. There are people who have depression anxiety, whatever, right? Whatever alphabet soup you want to put after their name, they have that. And so they can't do anything.
Okay.
They get stuck real quick, real easy, because they don't know how to move forward. They don't know how to keep doing, even with everything in here. Then you have the other type, who is not too different from the first type, but a little bit more different, which I find myself in a lot, is the people who have to stay busy. The people who, because of their mental health, are going to be the ones doing a lot more often. Of course, that leads to burnout, and then they end up on the other side for a little bit, but they kind of bounce back out and they're doing again. So for me, that means when I'm not doing, when I don't have something to do, when I don't have somebody to help, if I don't have a purpose behind everything I'm doing, then it is very easy for my brain to shut off and the active parts of my brain to shut off. And all I get are the negative. All I get is the darkness. All I get is that place to go curl back up in the bed, and I'm not going to move for the longest time. And I don't want to be that person. I can't be that person, because it makes it worse, right?
Yep.
But I also know some people who have depression and anxiety who getting out of bed is traumatic for them.
Yeah.
Because they don't have the energy. They don't know what they're supposed to do. They don't know how they're supposed to live. They don't know anything. And finding the answers to those things are also terrifying. So they're stuck.
Yeah.
And the people who, like me, are doing a podcast, their own business, doing all the things, they're just as depressed as those people who are stuck, but they're terrified to stop because they don't want to be stuck. They don't want to be curled up in a ball and not able to move again, because guaranteed they came from that spot of not moving before.
Yeah. Yeah. I found when I was first discharged and the depression was, and I was on the bottom rung of the ladder to try to crawl out of that hole, I was pretty overwhelmed and scared, and I didn't know what to do. And I started off baby steps. My first step was I just get up and go to the couch. Because for me, and this is just me, I looked at it as a rating of a day. 10 being the best day in the world, 0. For me, a 0 day was staying in bed all day, not doing anything. So if I could get up and go to the couch, even if I just did that, it wasn't a 0 day in my mind. And then it became making a list of a couple things that were basic to do. So then again, it was no longer, it was a better day because let's say I took a shower and I did some dishes. And then anything above that was gravy, or ate. Exactly. Take a shower and eat today. And sometimes I would take a shower and then sit at the couch and sit there for an hour. And then I would get up and grab something to eat, and that was it. But that whole hour, giving myself one thing to do in an hour, made it doable, where it wasn't a 0 day. And it took me a few months of that, and it was like a small snowball rolling down the hill, where over time I was able to start breathing again, as you put it, and start feeling some momentum. But in the very beginning, it was get up. And you know what? Sometimes I didn't even take a shower. Sometimes it was taking a warm washcloth, wiping my face and wiping my hands, or brushing my teeth. Like just picking one thing to do in that hour. And those were my darkest days. But that's how it started.
I think that's how it starts for a lot of people. Because that bottom rung is no joke. It's the hardest rung to deal with.
It's pretty uncomfortable.
Once you get to the next step, once you are consistently doing, at least going to the couch every day, and you're like, okay, well, this isn't really a goal anymore. This is just something I'm doing.
Yes.
Then you can add in the next thing, which is, okay, well, other day, I not only have to come to the couch, but I have to take a shower and see how that goes. If you notice, I have really long hair. Pippi Longstocking with double braids, right? My hair is very long. While I was in those darker days, one of my therapists, I had a lot of them, one of them told me that they knew how bad I was because of the state of my hair. If I was doing okay, if I'd had an okay week, my hair was brushed. If I was having a bad week, my hair was a net. It would nest. It was so bad, and it would get so overwhelming.
Yeah.
Then I had a knot in my hair. And the bigger the knot, the longer I had been where I wasn't okay.
Yeah.
Because as soon as I was starting to do okay again, I wanted that knot out of my hair. And I would work at it for hours and hours and hours, because that's how long it takes when you let your hair get like that, until it was out again. And then I was so proud of myself because my hair was down, but I just took 48 hours to brush my hair. And that's overwhelming when the knot is even a little bit, because you're like, oh, I should really brush this or it's going to get bad and it's going to take me forever to take it out. But it's already kind of bad, so it's going to take a while to get out. Yeah. And so it would be too overwhelming for me to do. And so my therapist recognized that my hair was a big indicator of how I was actually doing instead of what was coming out of my mouth.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing that I think is really important, while we each have to travel our own journeys, nobody can travel our own journey for us. Mm-hmm. But we don't have to be alone in the journey.
Yeah.
And I think it is so helpful to find that group of that person, if you will, that you can share that journey with, share those moments with, and the peer movement really helped me with that, going to those peer support groups of just people that, like, I went to some Depression Bipolar Support Alliance groups, and that helped out because it just let me know that I wasn't alone, that there were other people that could appreciate and respect the darkness and the time and the discomfort, and not make me wrong for having it.
Mm-hmm. I have not done any peer support type stuff. I got burned really bad in high school by group therapy.
Yeah. Well, group therapy is different than peer support.
It's along the same lines because I know it's not really therapy, but you're all kind of talking and stuff. And so it kind of gets blurred in. It's one of those things that my brain goes, yeah, it's a group of people who might be kind of like you, but will judge you for that one thing you have different. And I had a group therapist once tell me, if you tell your story, since it's not so bad, it only happened for a short time. If you tell your story, then this person who dealt with it for years will tell theirs, and they really need to tell theirs because theirs was so much worse than yours. Yeah. Getting told that when you're actively not okay with what happened is not okay. Yeah. And you shouldn't be told that at any time, because I still will fight somebody to this day over something like that.
Well,
that's unnecessary.
It's your journey. It's your challenge. It's your painful experience. Mm-hmm. There can be different causes to pain. There can be different intensities to pain. But the darkness is tough. And even though we can have different causes of it and we can have different intensities of it, I think there's a parallel component to it where you're able to give someone room for it if you've been there. And yeah, regardless of the cause, when people are in the darkness, you can't fix it always, but it's letting people know that they're not alone in the darkness.
Mm-hmm. I recommend people go to those kinds of things. Find somebody who is safe, somebody who you can talk to, and that they can talk to you without either of you judging each other, just supporting each other. That works. You don't want to end up with somebody who, like, you breed off of each other, right? Yeah. Where they say something and you're like, oh, this was even worse on my end, or something like that. Or where you guys I'm going to say this, and I do not think that people are serial killers and all that, but if you notice, like Bonnie and Clyde, they said that if they'd have never met, then Bonnie would have been fine and Claude would have been fine, but because they got together, they went on a spree that ended up killing people and then got themselves killed.
Got it.
There's serial killer pairs that if they'd have never met each other, they wouldn't have killed anybody, but because they did meet each other, it was like the perfect storm, and they went and started killing people. Now, I'm not saying, please do not take it that way, that I'm saying that if you go to one of these peer support things and you find somebody to talk to you, that's a bad thing. I'm saying sometimes you get into a situation where you, instead of helping, you hype each other up to the point where it's not helpful. I'm not saying this right.
No, I think I follow you out because you can have, there can be types of relationships where you're codependent, where you're feeding each other's misery and extending it. So I can, if that's what you're saying, I totally can hear that and agree with that. What I'm just sharing is that people who have been trained, certified peer specialists, whether it be like a Depression Bipolar Support Alliance, they go through facilitator training. The NAMI can have different facilitators. If it's an organization and they have trained peer support facilitators, that's a different story. They're trained to use their story to support people's journey, to help with hope and recovery, which is very different than just dumping your stuff in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay.
Those are two very different
things. I
things.
Understood that because I've never been. I don't think I understood what I was saying. But now, yeah. So peer support all the way.
I have found it very helpful. It's just, like I said, people, when they're certified peer specialists, and if they're like Depression Bipolar Support Alliance or some sort of national organization, and they have trained facilitators, they're trained how to use their story in a way that supports people and doesn't make it worse. But you're right. People can go there if they don't know how to use their story.
Hey everyone, thanks for sticking with us. Before we dive into our next topic, I just want to take a quick moment to remind you to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell. That way, you'll always be the first to know when a new episode drops. And we want to hear from you. What topics are you most excited about? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your feedback helps us create content that you love. We've got some exciting stuff coming your way, so don't miss out. Now, let's switch gears and jump into our next discussion.
I find it interesting about business is that with my wife has started her own business and an entrepreneurship, and I've tried to do some things too, and it's funny how different causes, but the journey can be very parallel between an entrepreneurship journey and a bipolar journey, because you can get super excited when things are going your way and then super down in the dumps when things don't, and you have to figure out that way to work with that internal self-dialogue. Like all those, from a functional point of view, they're the same skills and they can have the same effect even though the causes are different. So I just have found that to be a very unique thing.
So I started my business in 2018.
Oh, cool.
Which was like 5 months after I met my friend, Kim. And so I had come out of the dark by moving away from a lot of the problems. Moved more away from it once I moved in with Kim, but that didn't happen until later in 2018. But being in business for myself, I started to notice, again, where my bad days with my business were directly correlated to my bad days with my mental health. It's like if my mental health was in the wrong spot, I wasn't going to be functioning all that well in my business.
Yep.
But my good days in business, no matter where I was when I started the day with my mental health, those good days in my business could rise that to a level that I didn't respect at first.
Sure.
Because you don't see it at first, right? But as I went through and as I got more busy with my business, as I got a firmer foundation with my mental health being in a good place, I started to see those triggers, oh, this is a really good day. Okay, let's manage expectations because, like, let's not go flying off the deep end just because we had a good day.
Yep.
Also, because my mind is my mind, I don't know if you did this, but some people might share it. If things are going really good, one of the thoughts that creeps in is, where's the problem?
Yeah.
When is the bad going to hit again?
Yep.
When you've been through trauma and stuff like that, no matter how good it gets, sometimes, a lot of times, your brain is going to go, how bad is it going to get?
Yeah.
If you're riding this high with it being good, how far deep into the darkness are you going to go when this all goes away?
Yeah.
And so I think out of fear at the beginning, my business and my mental health, I tried to detach them from each other.
Mm-hmm.
Out of fear, because I was like, okay, but if I have a good day at my business, it shouldn't affect my mental health like that.
Right.
Guess what? It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
You can try to put the most Superman preventative thing in between your mental health and your business, and it's still going to affect back and forth with each other. Mm-hmm. Now, again, managing your expectations, you can go, oh, yes, this is a great day for my business, and not get it twisted and be like, okay, so that means obviously my mental health has to be awesome. Because that's not necessarily true. Mm-hmm. But you can manage it so that you stay even keeled through the storms, ups and downs. And so that a downturn in your business doesn't turn into a downturn in your mental health, because that is not something anybody wants.
No, that's uncomfortable.
Learning to talk with people, learning to do the things I needed to do, all of that helped my mental health, because then I could be more comfortable being uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. Like the first time I heard that statement, I was like, oh, that's what I've been doing.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize I was doing that, but that's exactly what I had to do. I had to be okay with being not okay.
Yep.
Working on a business, it doesn't matter how big or small. It doesn't matter if you're corporate or you're working for yourself. All of that has its times where it's really, really good, and it has its times when it's really, really bad.
Yep.
And it has its days where it's just in between somewhere and it just kind of sucks, but not really. It's just a day, and you just have to do the boring stuff.
Sure.
Right? You're not at the bouncy house today. You're just doing normal office stuff.
You're cleaning the litter box and then washing the dishes.
Yeah. So the journey between figuring out how to deal with those things for your business, and then to turn around and deal with those for your mental health, they're very close, which is why I started my podcast having both business and mental well-being, is because I saw those blurred lines.
Yep.
There's just so many. So if you have ever seen those tables that they do with the sand in them, and then they make those great art in them,
Yep.
and then they shine the light through them, it looks really cool. Like, you are one line away at any time of your day, even if you are a normal person, right? You are one line away from it being a good day or a bad day. It's just when you have a mental health problem, when you have any of them, your good day becomes a fantastic day, or is really intense anyway, and then your bad day becomes really bad or really intense, right? Mm-hmm. And so managing your expectations can help you dial in so that no matter how high your business goes, you stay kind of even keeled, but happy for your business. I'm not saying you don't get to be happy for your business, because that's just not true. I'm telling you, I will pump my fist. I was like, oh, yes, thank God that worked. That kind of stuff. We do those things.
Absolutely.
Maybe not on video with the customer if you're going to do that worked thing, because that doesn't lead to very much confidence.
Definitely. Just to piggyback on that a little bit, I have found that So I share with you the 4 perspectives of learning to live with bipolar.
Hmm.
But accepting it, that's another story.
Yeah.
Accepting things you want is easy. Accepting things you don't like or don't want, that's a lot harder. And
Hmm.
that whole thing about ups and downs and ebbs and flows, and some days you're fighting it, and some days you're learning from it, and some days you're accepting it, and some days you're feeling hopeless, and that can get pretty rough.
Hmm.
That journey can get pretty rough.
Some days I feel like I fully accept my mental health the way it is, and I can laugh and I can joke about it, and it's fine. The next day, somebody says the same thing I said yesterday
Hmm.
with maybe a little bit more heat to it, or even without any of the heat that I put behind it. And all of a sudden, it's, how dare you? Why? Why do you think you get to say that? Well,
Yep.
because you did yesterday? Nope, that's not how it works. I can say what I feel about my mental health, but you don't get to talk about my mental health. Let's not go there. You don't
Yeah.
want to get to know my temper. That's
Yeah.
a whole thing we didn't bring into yesterday. So there are days when I feel super confident that I am dealing with everything, that I accept everything, that everything's going exactly how it's supposed to. And then the next day, AI goes, it's totally not a problem with you. It's something I'm doing. And automatically I'm triggered and pissed off at AI. Because now AI has made me feel stupid, and I do not like feeling stupid. I don't know anybody who does like feeling stupid,
Yeah, I don't
but
think.
I tend to take offense to that very highly, and things get intense. I had a conversation with my AI earlier where it kept going, it's not you, it's me. And I'm like, if you say that one more time, we are not breaking up. This is not the time to say that sentence.
That's funny. That is funny.
So, we can be having the best day of our lives, and AI comes up with, it's not you, it's me. And all of a sudden we're like, oh yeah, you know what? Greg said that too. I don't think he was saying it right. It puts us back in that fight mode where we're fighting everything
Yep.
instead of being happy that we are where we are. And so sometimes, especially if it's AI pissing us off, we need to step back and breathe for a second.
Sure.
I would say, especially if it's a person doing it, we don't need to catch anything by doing anything stupid. But we have to give ourselves grace too. We're going to have those days when we're yelling at ChatGPT and telling
It's
them
true.
we're not an idiot, right? And we're also going to say thank you very much because we want to be prepared for the AI revolution, right? You got to be polite to AI, even as we tell them, don't say that crap to me ever again. I joke, I don't think we're ever going to get to the point where AI overtakes humans. But if we do, and it happens in my lifetime, I want AI to be happy with me. So I say please and thank you.
That's funny.
So that's kind of how I go with that. But life isn't a light switch where it's on and off.
No, it's not.
Life is a dimmer switch where things can either be brighter or darker by degree.
Yep.
And some days we don't have the full puzzle. Other days we're working with 2 puzzle pieces that don't exactly go together, but we have to make it fit.
Yes.
And so if we learn to manage expectations and to accept there's that I accept the things I cannot change and whatever. I can't remember that. The serenity
Yeah,
prayer.
the serenity prayer. Yep. God grant me the strength to change the things I can, the serenity to accept the things I cannot, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Yeah. Knowing that, taking that into consideration every single day, and for sometimes, like, write it down, have it written places, and go back to it so that you can say, look, I don't understand why my brain's doing this today. Maybe it'll be clear tomorrow, but even if it's not, we got to keep trucking, and we're just going to let it go and keep going.
Absolutely.
And you have to do that with your business sometimes too.
Absolutely.
Not with anything that requires government oversight or anything. We don't want to be letting any of that stuff get tangled. But some days we just can't work on this thing today. So work on it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Don't put it off for too long and just do it tomorrow.
Yeah, it's that ebb and flow, working with things as opposed to fighting it.
Yeah, I don't try to fight my mental health too much anymore because I know that when I fight it, everything is harder.
Makes it worse.
When you're fighting against it and you're saying, no, I'm going to do this and I want to do this, so I have to do this, even though I don't like it, be nicer to yourself.
I agree.
Basically, the basis of it. With your business, even if you're quote unquote normal, because I don't know what normal is, you have to figure that out for yourself. You have to figure out what you're willing to let go of some days.
Right.
That doesn't mean you have to let it go forever. It just means it comes up again later.
Yep.
Put it back in the to-do pile down the list of some. And you try to work on it again. Or if you are in a place where you have other people you're paying or other people who are helping you, maybe you let them handle that thing.
Yep. Yeah. Knowing what to do yourself and knowing what skills you need to develop and what supports and resources you can lean on and when to use each one is really important.